2 a.m. The penthouse was silent. The kind of silence that presses against your ears until your own heartbeat feels too loud. Gene Park moved through the hallway without a sound. A man like him didn't need light. He had walked through darker places than this. Rooms filled with men begging for their lives. Floors stained with decisions no one survived. But tonight, this silence felt different, heavy, wrong. His hand hovered inches from the playroom door. Inside, his children were supposed to be asleep, safe. That's what he had built his entire empire for. That door, that room, that was the only place in his world untouched by violence. He reached for the handle, and then a hand clamped onto his forearm. Hard, precise, unshakable. Gene's body reacted instantly, muscles tightening, instincts sharpening, ready to break bones before a second thought could form. But the voice that followed stopped him cold, low, urgent, steady. If you open that door, you lose your children forever. It was Amber, the maid, the woman who never looked him in the eye, the woman who moved like she didn't exist. But now she was standing directly in front of him. Her grip didn't loosen. Her eyes didn't drop. They locked onto his with a force that didn't belong to a servant. Gene's jaw tightened. No one touched him. No one. What are you doing? He whispered, his voice sharp enough to cut. Amber didn't answer. She only leaned closer. 6 seconds, she said quietly. That's all you get. Her grip shifted, guiding him, not forcing, but leaving no room to resist, toward the narrow gap between the door and the frame. Gene hesitated. Every instinct screamed at him to throw her off, to end whatever this was in a single movement. But something in her voice, something in her eyes, held him there. He lowered his gaze, looked through the crack, and everything inside him stopped. A flash of red, sharp, out of place. Then his daughter, Willow, on her knees, small, still, silent. The soft rug beneath her looked too large, like it was swallowing her whole. Gene's breath caught in his throat. No, that wasn't right. That wasn't possible. His mind rejected it before it could even make sense of it. Then he saw her, Scarlet, standing over Willow, dressed in red, perfect, composed. Her posture relaxed, almost casual, like this was normal, like this was routine. She took a slow step forward. Her heel pressed lightly against the edge of the rug. Willow didn't move, didn't even look up. Gene felt something violent rise in his chest. Hot, immediate, uncontrollable. His hand twitched toward the door. Amber's grip tightened instantly, stronger than before. Wait, she whispered. Inside the room, Scarlet crouched down, slowly, deliberately. Her face softened into something that almost looked like a smile. Almost. Gene leaned closer to the crack. Every nerve in his body stretched toward what he was seeing, trying to understand, trying to reject it, trying to wake up from it. Then, another movement. A small one behind Willow. Ethan, his son, standing just behind her, close enough to shield her, but not close enough to stop anything. His posture stiff, his face unreadable. Too still, too quiet. Gene's chest tightened. Why wasn't he moving? Why wasn't he saying anything? Scarlet tilted her head slightly, studying Willow, waiting. The silence in the room stretched and stretched until it snapped. Her voice came out soft, controlled. Tell me what you are. Gene froze. Willow didn't respond. Her shoulders trembled. Barely. Scarlet leaned closer, closer, say it. The word came out, broken, so quiet. It almost didn't exist. But Jean heard it. He heard every piece of it. Worthless. Everything inside him shattered. The hallway disappeared. The walls, the silence, the air, gone. Replaced by something raw and violent and unstoppable. His hand moved. This time, faster, stronger. He was going to break that door down. End it right now, right there. Amber slammed him back against the wall. The impact knocked the breath from his lungs. Her hand came up fast, pressing against his chest. Not yet, she hissed. Jean barely heard her. His eyes were still locked on the crack in the door, on his daughter, on the word that had just been forced out of her, on the man he had been, and the father he had failed to be. Inside the room, Scarlett straightened slowly, completely unaware, completely in control. Ethan shifted, just slightly, closer to Willow, closer to the danger, like he had done it before, like he knew what came next. Jean's voice came out low, dangerous, unrecognizable. What is this? Amber didn't look at him. Her eyes stayed on the door, on the scene he was still trying to process. This, she said quietly, is why you can't go in there. Jean's fist clenched, the gold ring on his finger dug into his skin, hard enough to hurt, not hard enough to matter. Inside the room, Scarlett took another step. Willow flinched. Even before she touched her, even before anything happened, she flinched, like she already knew, like she was waiting for it. Jean's control cracked. Just enough. You expect me to stand here, he whispered, his voice shaking with restrained violence. And watch this? Amber finally turned to him, and for the first time, there was no hesitation in her expression, no fear, only certainty. If you walk in there now, she said, you lose them. Jean stared at her. The words didn't make sense. They didn't fit. Not with what he was seeing, not with what he was feeling. Explain. Amber shook her head. Once, not now. Look again. Jean turned back to the door, against his instincts, against everything inside him, screaming to act. He looked, and this time, he didn't just see. He understood. Ethan wasn't just standing there. He was positioning himself, subtly, carefully, between Scarlett and Willow, like a shield, like someone who had learned exactly how far to go without making things worse. Willow wasn't just kneeling, she was bracing, her body already reacting to something that hadn't happened yet. Something expected, something familiar. Scarlett wasn't angry, she wasn't out of control. She was calm, measured, practiced, and that was the worst part. Jean felt the shift happen inside him. Slow, cold, precise. The rage didn't disappear. It changed, sharpened, focused, dangerous. In a different way. Behind him, Amber's voice dropped lower. She's been doing this for months. Jean didn't move, didn't blink, didn't breathe. 3 months, Amber continued. And tonight, a pause, just long enough. She wanted you to see it. Jean's head turned slightly, just enough to look at her from the corner of his eye. What? Amber's expression didn't change. This isn't a mistake. Her voice was steady, controlled. This is a setup. Inside the room, Scarlett reached out. Willow flinched again. Ethan stepped in closer, and Jean finally understood one thing. This wasn't just happening. It was planned. Every second, every word, every reaction. His jaw tightened. Then why Stop me. Amber stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. Because the moment you walk through that door, a pause, a breath, a warning, you play exactly the role she prepared for you. Jean looked at her fully now. The hallway felt colder, smaller, like it was closing in. And what role is that? Amber didn't hesitate. The man who loses everything. Silence fell between them, heavy, unavoidable. Inside the room, Scarlett smiled again. Ethan didn't move. Willow didn't speak. And Jean stood frozen between two choices. Break the door or understand the trap. Amber's grip finally loosened. Just slightly, just enough. You have 6 seconds left, she said. Jean turned back to the door, his eyes narrowing, his breathing slowing, his mind catching up to something his instincts hadn't yet accepted. He looked through the crack one more time, and what he saw next made him stop completely. Gene Park wasn't a man people questioned. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. One look from him could end conversations. One decision from him could end lives. Across the city, his name moved faster than fear. Businesses bent, rivals disappeared, and the streets obeyed. He controlled everything, or at least that's what he believed, because inside that same man was a blind spot he never protected. Scarlett, the woman he chose, the woman he trusted, the only person who could stand beside him without flinching, without fear, without consequence. He gave her access to his home, to his life, to his children, and that was where his empire had already begun to crack. Ethan, 7 years old, quiet, watchful, too aware for his age. He didn't cry easily, didn't speak unless necessary. He observed, calculated, endured, like someone learning survival far too early. And Willow, 5, soft, gentle, the kind of child who still believed hugs could fix everything, the kind of child who should have never learned fear. But she had. Jean just didn't see it. Not when he was busy building power, not when he was winning wars outside, because the real war had already started inside his own home, and he had no idea until tonight. The hallway came rushing back, cold, silent, unforgiving. Jean stood frozen, but only for a second. Then instinct took over. His hand shot back toward the door. Enough. He was done watching. But Amber moved first. Her grip snapped tighter around his arm, pulling him back just enough to stop the motion. Look, she whispered, sharper this time, not with anger, with your eyes. Jean's jaw clenched. Every second felt like torture. But he looked again through the narrow crack. Inside, Scarlett stood over Willow. Perfect posture, calm expression. Like this was nothing. Like this was normal. She took a slow step closer. Willow's shoulders trembled. Scarlett crouched down, her voice soft, controlled. Tell me what you are. Silence. Willow didn't answer. Scarlett's smile faded slightly. Say it. A pause. Then, worthless. The word hit like a gunshot. Jean snapped. His body surged forward. All control gone in an instant. The door. He was going to break it. End it. Right now. Amber slammed into him, hard, driving him back into the wall with a force he didn't expect. Her hand pressed against his chest, holding him there. Stop, she hissed. Jean struggled, fury exploding through him. Get off me. If you go in there. She cut in, breath sharp, eyes locked on his. You destroy them. That made him pause. Just for a second. Inside the room, Willow lowered her head. Ethan stepped closer to her. And Scarlett? Scarlett smiled, like she was waiting, like she knew. Jean's breathing turned heavy, violent, unstable. Amber didn't loosen her grip. Think, she whispered, or you lose everything. Jean's eyes snapped back to the crack in the door. And what he saw next made his rage hesitate. Jean's rage didn't disappear. It stalled, just enough for thought to cut through it. Amber leaned closer, her voice low and steady. She wants you to kill her. Jean's eyes snapped to hers. That's the plan. A beat. If you walk in there like this, you give her everything. His jaw tightened. Everything. Your empire. Your freedom. Your children. Silence. Then Amber reached into her apron and pulled out a small phone. The screen lit up between them. I've been recording, she said. 3 months? She pressed play. The footage was shaky, hidden, but clear enough. Ethan stood in the frame, small, still, in front of Willow, shielding her. Scarlett's voice echoed faintly. Cold, controlled, a sudden movement. Ethan flinched, but didn't move away, didn't cry, didn't speak. He just stood there, taking it for Jean's breath. Slowed, not from calm, from something heavier, something deeper. The video ended. The screen went dark. Amber's voice softened. He does that every time. Jean didn't respond. His eyes were still on the blank screen, seeing more than what was shown, understanding more than what was said. My son, he whispered. A pause. Then the truth hit him fully. He's been fighting this alone. The rage inside him changed. No longer wild. Now focused, cold, dangerous. In a different way. Amber slipped the phone back into her apron. The question is, she said quietly, are you going to keep reacting? Or finally start thinking? Jean lifted his gaze. Back to the door. Back to the war he never saw coming. And this time, he didn't move. The shift was immediate. Jean stepped back from the door. No more impulse. No more noise. Only control. Amber didn't wait. They can't stay here, she said quickly. I've already prepared a way out. Jean's eyes narrowed. What kind of way? A clean one, she replied. Private route. No staff. No cameras. Your children leave before sunrise. A beat. They'll be safe. Jean studied her for a second, then nodded. Once. Good. Amber reached into her cart and pulled out a sealed folder. Thick, heavy, prepared. This is bigger than her, she said, handing it over. She's not alone. Jean opened it. Photos, transactions, meetings, familiar faces, men who should have been enemies. Now, standing beside Scarlett, his expression hardened. Rivals, he muttered. Amber nodded. She's been feeding them everything. Your routes, your assets. Jean flipped another page. Numbers, transfers, large ones, moved quietly, carefully. Financial betrayal, Amber added. She's already started moving your empire under you. Silence. Then Jean closed the folder. Slowly, the air around him changed. Cold, final. They're not just coming for me, he said. Amber shook her head. They're coming for everything. A pause. Then she met his eyes. You have less than an hour before they make their move. Jean adjusted his cuff. Calm, precise, like nothing was wrong. Then we don't wait, he said. His voice dropped. Low, certain. We end it before they begin. Amber gave a small nod. The plan was no longer survival. It was war. Morning came too quietly. Sunlight filled the kitchen. Everything looked normal. Scarlett stood across from him, calm, composed, untouched, like the night had never happened. Jean said nothing. He simply reached for the folder, opened it, and slid it across the table. It stopped right in front of her. Scarlett frowned slightly, curious. Then she looked down. The first photo, her meeting. The second, the transfers. The third, her smile faded completely. Slowly, she lifted her eyes. No warmth, no softness, just calculation. You went through my things, she said quietly. Jean leaned back, unbothered. I fixed my mistake, he replied. A pause. The room shifted. Scarlett's posture straightened, her mask gone, replaced by something colder, sharper, more honest. For the first time, she looked exactly like the enemy. Neither of them moved. Neither of them blinked. Then, Jean spoke, calm, controlled, final. The cleanup starts now. Silence. And this time, she knew. Scarlett didn't reach for the folder again. She didn't argue, didn't deny it. She just watched him, carefully measuring, calculating her next move. Jean stood up slowly. No rush, no emotion, just control. Behind him, the city stretched wide. Unaware of what was about to happen, Amber was already gone. The children were already moving, and the trap had just flipped. Scarlett tilted her head slightly, a faint smile returning. So, this is how it ends? She asked. Jean paused, then turned back to her, his expression unreadable. No, he said quietly. A beat. This is where it begins. Silence filled the room, heavy, final. Scarlett's eyes sharpened. She understood now. This wasn't panic. This wasn't reaction. This was war. Jean adjusted his jacket, picked up his coffee, took a slow sip, like nothing had changed, but everything had. He set the cup down and walked past her without looking back. His voice followed him out. Cold, certain. She thought she was hunting a dying man. A step. The door opened. She had just awakened a lion. The door closed.